From the cutting edge of anomaly research, you are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, D.W. Gannett.
Well, hi there, and welcome to episode number 65 of The Evidence. This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D, and we are back in our Southern Command, an undisclosed location in the People's Republic of Massachusetts. And we're going to be looking at something different. You know, we've covered a lot of ground in the last almost year. In October, it'll be a year since we went on the air, so to speak. And boy, we've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of great anomalies. So we're going to look at a few things that are a little bit different today on some of the other planets and other locations, if you will. And they're all good ones. So I'm glad you're here. Remember, this is a stereographic 3D channel. There are directions below telling you how to learn X3D viewing. Super simple. You don't need glasses. Just do it with your own very own eyeballs. So enough talking. Let's head into it. We're going to start out this week with A Little Eye Candy by James Van Zyl. James is a highly accomplished stereophotographer whose work appears regularly on the Facebook 3D site. I'll put a link down below if you want to check it out. Anyway, James created what's called a hyper stereo of the planet Jupiter using lateral baseline tracking from the Cassini spacecraft. Say, for example, you're flying over a range of mountains and you snap a photo out the window. Then, a minute or so later, you snap another. When you combine those two images, you get a hyper stereo, where now the mountain appears in 3D, but it looks much smaller, like a perfect little model mountain made for a train layout. In effect, it's like your head is 10 miles wide, with your eyes miles apart. In this case, your head is nearly 200,000 miles across. Anyway, a great idea, James, and nicely done. Scott Waring has a very popular website, UFO Sightings Daily, and occasionally he'll find something on one of the planets when he's not otherwise busy sorting through all those UFO sightings. This one popped up while he was examining the orbital images from the Mercury messenger orbiter. This crater is about 25 miles across, and the objects in question are about 12 miles long and maybe 5 or 6 miles across. These are big rascals, whatever they are. As we move in closer, you can see that these structures are curved, arching from the crater floor into the crater wall, and more importantly, they appear to be metallic by the way the sun is reflected. As we go in for the tight shot, we can see that the image is badly pixelated, making the main structure look like a saw blade on both sides. So I got busy with the degaussing tool to smooth out the structures and the edges of the crater a bit. That means it gets blurry, but it does give you a better idea of exactly what the camera is looking at. We'll be taking a look at something else Scott found in just a minute. My friend Neville Thompson is a long-time fixture in the anomalous community. All of us weirdos depend upon his beautiful Gigapans and lately his Gigamacros, so I guess he can be forgiven if he cherry-picks his own creations before releasing them to the public. This area in the context view seems to be heavily blasted by the prevailing winds, with the sand doing a number on all exposed surfaces. Sand driven by 200-mile-an-hour winds here on Earth would grind a tractor down to tinsel in no time at all. But in the thin air of Mars, it takes a lot longer to have an effect. But still, you give the wind and the sand 50,000 or more years to do its thing, and you end up with a lot of strange-looking vent effects. Now this, to me, looks pretty amazing. Those curves, those lines, and those right angles make it look like part of a machine, or maybe just some intricate carving created by some ancient stonemason. Let's move in closer. Now, to be brutally honest, If you take the time to examine the area linked down below, you'll see that there are other similar examples scattered around. I can't really say whether this one is just natural erosion or a genuine artifact. I'm going to leave that with you to figure out. Okay, we're back to Scott Waring for something he found in Keith Laney's Gigapan of Sol 931. Scott calls this one a top hat. I can see where one could easily get the impression that this is a hat, even though it's more likely to be one rock lying up against another. That seems like a pretty thick brim to me, though it'd probably do a pretty good job of keeping meteorites out of your eyes. But look at that top portion. It really does seem to be cylindrical, and the top does appear to be flat, or at the very least slightly rounded, like a tall derby. And if you look closely, there's a small round knob on the side facing us down by the sand. While I'm pretty certain this isn't actually a hat, it certainly pops out as something not natural. And that rock to the left of it, that's a pretty strange piece of business all by itself. I hope you can forgive me for doubling down on something you saw last week. Something to me that's an amazing example of possible carving from Sol 952. My buddy, Neal Spence, just released his beautiful rendition of 952 in a bright and beautiful Gigamacrp, and I couldn't resist going in and doing an update on the older version you saw last week. First off, here's the old one I did straight off the NASA servers years ago. It's not too bad, and you can see everything pretty clearly. But now, look at Neal's upgraded product. In my opinion, this is much more clear and overall a better representation of what's actually there. I'll switch back and forth between them a couple times so you can compare. Before we leave, take a look at the part to the far right and see if this next one doesn't look like it might belong with it. Before you reject this one, look at the cubical structure on the right side of this boulder, along with all those raised figures, squiggles and lines, and even what kind of looks like a cross or possibly a stylized humanoid shape in white at about the 10 o'clock position. Then look just in back, a white cube lying at an angle and having what could be carving on its face. And then slip over to the left and look at all those non-fractal structures in that gray boulder. I'm thinking fused and eroded machinery myself, but you can call it anything you want. As we slide over to the left side of Neal's Gigamacrp, take a look at the lower left and you'll see a perfect little pyramid just sitting there in the sand. This is small, but pretty amazing in my book. Its perfect shape, carved openings, and other work along the base are all set off by two perfect 45-degree bevels running off each side that scatter the sunlight. Now in Egypt, a small capstone called a Pyramidian was always a crowning portion of any obelisk or pyramid. They were always associated with the sacred Ben stone. Just Google it, and you'll see what an amazing piece of workmanship that particular Pyramidian is. So, here's a Benbenet. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. A small capstone, usually carved with figures, openings, or script invoking prayers or supplications to the Egyptian pantheon. This one's pretty broken up and eroded, but you get the idea. You know, we found so many pyramids and pyramid-like objects on Mars that it's easy to speculate how our own ancient worldwide network of pyramids might have been something we learned from our Martian ancestors. Hey, thanks for stopping by today. You know I don't do this for money. The only pay I get is if you take half a second, if you saw something you liked, and give it a thumbs up. That lets me know I can go ahead and continue all the time and effort that goes into these little productions. Hey, if you haven't learned X3D, look down below. It's so easy. Check out the other websites as well. This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. Be well.